Okay, so we're ready to begin. So my name is Dennis Speed, and on behalf of the LaRouche Political Action Committee, I want to welcome you to our webcast and dialogue with Lyndon LaRouche. Not actually webcast, but dialogue. There's a lot of organizing that we're trying to do in the area, and I know some people here are very concerned to both report some of that, and that's of relevance. But there's a strategic reality in which everything is placed. We want to make sure that we establish that in our minds, and our organizing questions fall within that context. So, Lynn, I'd ask you if you would give us an opening statement, and then we'll go right to our first questions.
Well, this is a new stage for me, again, because it's in the round, because we are on the edge of a crisis for all of humanity. And therefore, I think it's important that we treat these matters accordingly, not by any frivolous form of discussion.
Right, exactly. So we'll go to our first question. And can others line up or get into the seats so we can proceed efficiently?
Hi, Lynn. Oh, maybe here. Hi, Lynn. Alvin here in New York. Can you hear me okay?
I hear you fine.
Great. I wanted to start today. I've been thinking more and more about what Putin has actually accomplished in the recent period. And then going back to just last summer, prior to the fall, prior to the announcement of the Russians intervening militarily, and how the situation looked in need of a miracle and oftentimes potentially hopeless. No intervention would be required, and we're on the verge of World War III. Here enters Putin now, and within the time that he designated, has accomplished everything apparently that his strategic outlook calls for at this point. And obviously this is not, this is the beginning of a withdrawal. Now, this area was targeted and continues to be targeted for complete destruction, this entire region. And he has come in and, in essence, not just militarily intervene and open up the diplomatic avenues for peace, but actually, it seems to me, this was a miracle what he pulled off, because the situation seemed that bad. And so, what is it? Again, I kind of discussed this with you a little on Thursday, but these are things that come new to me. I didn't realize this was actually happening when it was happening, and here we are now. So I'd like to know more about the understanding of what a real strategic mind like Putin, how that operates, because our population, we, not me, not the population, we need to understand that better, because there's the miracle that was created, and we need to create the same thing here now in the United States.
This.
Can you fix that mute? Good.
Okay. Well, this is a little bit complicated because you cannot make a short statement on the answer, a very important answer to this question. Now, what the essential thing is not what happened in those facts, but goes deeper. And unless you go into those deeper matters, you do not get a correct estimation of what the implications are of this subject matter. What has happened is that the United States and Europe in general has now reached a point of self-destruction, or a point of termination of the transatlantic community. Because what the problem now is, if you really, instead of trying to take guesses on what might be factors, you've got to look at the whole picture as a whole. Otherwise, you don't get a picture. The picture is that the United States, under the leadership of Great Britain, the British system, the dominating role of the British system, especially during the 20th century and beyond. At that point is reached now, where the conditions are those of total collapse in the transatlantic community. Inside the transatlantic community, Western Europe, Central Europe, and the West, to west of that. Now, and the history has moved to the point of Russia and China, and elements in the picture which fit also in that same set. This includes, various parts of Asia relevant. So this is something which is absolutely new. What we face now is the problem here is the United States and Western Europe in particular are already doomed. That is, in their present situation, in their present practices, they are doomed. Only if we make a transformation within the United States to overturn the present system of the United States, economic system, then we can get out of this thing. Otherwise, what is happening is that everything is collapsing west of the Atlantic Ocean. Everything. And unless we in the United States come to a recognition of these hard facts, these are not temptations, these are not simple things. These are hard facts. It means that you have to throw the current president of the United States out of the window, or something like that. If you don't overturn the present system of the United States and the practices which dominate the present system of the United States, economic practices, then you are looking at chaos. And the included result would be that Asia would be the only significantly surviving area for any hope of mankind. In other words, what's happened is the British Empire, which has dominated the whole system all these years, that thing is now doomed in its present form, its present practices. Only if we can come to an arrangement which throws Obama to hell, perhaps, or something like that, and things like that. Unless you can do that, you are now actually in a situation where a threat is general thermonuclear war. Unless Obama is thrown out of office, in particular, the threat of a general thermonuclear war is an immediate one. And this is not a joke of any case. This is not something bad. This is the threat of extermination. And therefore, we have to understand the fact that this is the case, and that we in the United States have a responsibility to mobilize ourselves to make sure that the appropriate response is delivered.
Thank you, Lynn.
Next.
Oh, young man.
Hello. See you.
See, you're in pretty good condition.
Preserved, I think.
Okay.
Well, I think appropriate to some of this, Suzanne and I had a chance to spend some time with a senior scientific figure over at the Institute of Advanced Studies. And he had some reactions, and in a sense, I'd like to hear if you have any reaction to his reactions. You know, he's very much concerned about nuclear war. I mean, he's made the point. Of course, he comes out of right out of the World War II era himself, and he thinks there's a complete lack of recognition of the threat of nuclear war. And in the course of this, we brought up the question of Russia and China, and these are some of the interesting responses on Putin. He referred to the fact that he had been at the Pugwash, the original Pugwash conference, he himself, and this was the first chance they had to speak to some of the Soviet scientists. But he said they soon realized that the key person to talk to was the minder, and he named him a guy named Pavlichenko, who was the KGB minder for the Soviet scientists. And the point that he made was they soon learned that if they wanted to get something to the Kremlin, the person to talk to was not the scientist first, but to talk to Pavlichenko, the KGB man. And he said Putin was like Pavlichenko. You could talk to him directly. You knew what he wanted. He had a certain idea of what you might want. And, you know, he saw the situation today in that light. I brought up what you've brought up, the St. Petersburg experience, which he agreed, but he came back to Pavlichenko. He also brought up a younger scientist, and he wanted to give the example of somebody, the role of China. And he said, this is a younger guy, I guess he's in his 40s, who's a prominent high-energy physicist. And he said, this guy spends every other month he goes to China. And why does he go to China? Because he wants to build a big accelerator, the biggest one in the bigger than CERN. And what our friend said was, if you want to get anything done in science today, you go to China, because that's the place to get it done. Now, I think it's also worth noting that the person we were talking to was very struck. Suzanne showed him at the end of the discussion the increase in the mortality rates amongst youth in New York State. This was a study that was done in New York State and elsewhere. And he fully recognizes the situation in the United States. He may not agree with us on everything. He was very interested in the Eurasian land bridge. He said, I'm sympathetic. But I thought the comment on Pavlichenko and at the Pugwash conference and the comparison to Putin, and then the younger scientists going to China as the only way to get anything done, certainly fits with some of with a good deal of what you've been saying, and I thought might be interesting for your reflections on what he had to say.
A decision which has to be made. If the people in the United States presently, if leading people in the United States will clean out the Congress of the bums and establish some of the institutions, get rid of Bump, of course, Gump, and people like that, the swine, get rid of that and just revolt against everything that Obama represents and these bums represent. That is the only way we can protect the people of the United States. That can work. A coup organized legally among the membership of the Congress and the institutions attached to that Congress can save the United States from a threat which is now oncoming at an accelerating rate, which can be resisted by using new technologies which are available. They will be weak at first, but they can become stronger. The means exist to supply those kinds of technologies. That would be the only course to suggest the possibility of avoidance of general warfare, including thermonuclear warfare. Otherwise, we're in trouble. We might survive, but the chances are very poor.
Thanks.
Okay, next.
Good afternoon, Mr. LaRouche. This is Rod from Brooklyn.
Yes.
I'll keep this short. How will what Putin has done in Syria affect progress on the new Silk Road project?
Well, of course, my wife Helga is, of course, the expert on that matter in terms of the technology. She is active presently there in Europe at this time, back again, and she is a leading person in her contribution to the hope that we can get Europe out of the kind of nastiness which Europe today is involved in. Now, Europe today, under the influence of the British Empire, is the chief threat to humanity, because the means to deal with this problem exist in those quarters. And it's very important, absolutely crucial, because first of all, the transatlantic community, the transatlantic culture will not survive unless the change is made. That's one of the options. Right now, there is no option for the people of the United States unless a change in the economy of the United States occurs. No chance at all. Because we're on the edge right now. There is absolutely no shield, no real shield to defend the people of the United States against the threat that faces the entire population of the United States right now. And therefore, that's the issue we have to fight immediately.
I assume that's number one.
That is well, killing all the people in the United States would be number one for us.
Thank you.
Okay, next. Okay.
Hello, Mr. LaRouche.
Yeah.
My name is Sergey from New York. I have been indirectly a part of your organization maybe for 15 years, and directly about 13, 14 years ago. And I could probably say that speaking to a 25-year-old 15 years ago is a completely different experience than today. And you could sense that there's the knowledge that some people had once before probably isn't there today. But could we perhaps see that as a good thing, maybe, because all these political orientations and goals and classifications that people associate themselves with perhaps is a little too much, and given the last 100 years or so, you could see that the American people and the American mind have been effectively trumped. If we could use, could say that today. But having to see what you brought to the equation with your background in economics, and it really awes me to think that you're the only one that actually looks back to the fact that the human race has been effectively imperialized forever, except for the revolution that happened in America. And there's certainly been a lot of factions, but the fact remains that there is a whole new institution brought about, what's sometimes referred to as the National Bank, which under its principle had the general welfare of the people in mind, and the simple idea that when you build a bridge, everybody benefits. And therefore, this nation was built on that, and has been pretty incredible how the last 250 years or so of its infrastructure and physical development, and which then influenced Germany and Russia to do the same. And going back to the young people question.
Serge, let me just ask you,
Yeah.
Can you pose a question?
Yes, I just wanted to see if it's okay to compare what Russia and China is doing with BRICS Bank and the physical development that they've began building with the institution of the BRICS Bank and the infrastructure that has the potential for. Is that the same as what the United States first had as its mission, which is building the physical infrastructure?
This essentially has no relationship to the actual history of the United States. It's irrelevant. It's disconnected. None. And unless we get a new increment inside the United States, unless we throw Obama out of office if you don't throw Obama out of office, you have no chance of saving the United States. But getting Obama thrown out of office will not be sufficient to protect the United States. Otherwise, right now, the United States is on the verge, along with the transatlantic community, for early distinction, mass extinction. If you look at what's happening in the world today inside the United States, you will see the record shows what is happening in the death rates among skilled people or formerly skilled people inside the United States. The very population of the United States is being destroyed and self-destroyed by the mechanisms which rule the United States at this time. So the best option you can say is the United States is doomed unless, and effectively unless, the proper action takes place now. And that would probably mean throwing Obama out of office along with some other people. That might work. Otherwise, your case is hopeless.
Sorry to hear that. But
So am I.
Do we have another? Okay.
Hi again. Hi. It's Myron Turner from Queens. Last time I talked to you about the space program, Grandeur Space Corporation.
Yes, right.
And I just wanted to tell you that we worked in the program. We had 13 subsystems on the program. I worked with EPS, and there were other programs like RCS and communications and so on. I just wanted to ask you, what's the best way that we could use former retired engineers from NASA to work with young people who are age 11 and 12 who are very much interested in going into the space program?
Right now, in Texas, we have the site of the former space program, which was situated there in that position in Texas. That has been reactivated. It's in a modest degree reactivated. It's been done recently, and it could be one of the devices which could be used. Because if the United States would get rid of the garbage that it has now under economic policy, it would be possible to take this area of Texas, which is relevant for this point, and you can use that as a beginning point to get a growth pattern in certain parts of Texas and other areas, possibly also in some parts of California and so forth, where this kind of thing existed before. And if we mobilize that kind of thing that we once had during the period of the time of the, of the creation of the space program, that would be a very important achievement. And if your inclination in that direction is extremely relevant. The problem is there are fewer of you than there should be.
All right, thank you very much. Thank you.
Next.
Hi, Lynn. So over the past week, I've had a chance to organize several Indian Americans and organize them to move these people into the character of leadership that China represents today. Because there's still a lot of confusion within India, like Helga made it very clear in her interview, that Indians are not very clear of the power they now hold and of the power they are being told to use by China and Russia in the new paradigm. So I wanted your comments on what more could be done, or any insights into this.
Well, naturally, I have a very strong sympathy for the cause of India in general. I also understand what the chief problems are that get in the way in the ability of China to succeed, India to succeed. Now, India, when I came out of military service in the United States, and I had been serving in India at that period, we have known ever since that time, since I completed my military service in India, we've known there was a solution for these problems. The problem is the problem of systemic poverty, which is self-induced culturally. And if we can eliminate that cultural distinction and bring things up, that would be a great relief. Remember, I was back in military service, out of military service, and from there, I was involved in an argument on how we were going to bring the space program, the effective space, to India and to other nations. And I concentrated particularly on India. So at that point, in that period of my existence, the potential for success already existed. India had mobilized a powerful production process for economic development of the economic economy. And that has never been realized. Now the problem is now to do the realizing. And I would say, well, we have a lot of answers, like quasi-answers. We don't have a conclusive answer. We have to hope that we can get this reform in terms of the internal Indian population of the more poor Indians, in order to use that. That would be successful, because that would be a strengthening of China as well as a build-up for India and other nations nearby.
Yeah, that's very useful, because the poverty question is it's a problem in India, and there's cultural problems that affect that, like the caste system, and it's hard. What I've been trying to organize these people is that the way you're going to solve it is through the space program, is through collaborations on that level, not because what these people think, well, we need toilets and soaps, and we need to give out micro loans, and these things are going to solve the poverty. Whereas what you're saying is no, you need a complete revolution in the whole nation.
I can say that I was committed to sponsoring that project of economic development. And we had some successes. However, what happened, we had a backset when Indira Gandhi was assassinated by the British system. And I was in on that question of what her problems were. This woman was a genius. She was an absolute genius. Helga and I were sitting with her, walking with her, and so forth. I've been discussing with her, and we had a very close relationship with her, a practical one, in discussing technology things. So when she was assassinated, what happened was the power of India to muster the kind of plan that we had planned as a joint thing. And the President of the United States at that time had been part of one of the people. And he then was soon almost assassinated himself, and I was put into prison. So in all those kinds of things, that's the way things happen. Now we're given a situation, and on the basis, if we can get a good consolidation quickly of India, the whole part of India, that recovery problem, that would be great. It would also be a part of a key to saving civilization. I mean, if India could make that successful advent, that would work. But you have to start to educate enough people in technology, which was what we were trying to do already when I was going out of prison. So that's the way things work sometimes.
Thank you.
Hi, Mr. LaRouche. This is Rick from Bergen County, New Jersey. Regarding the current impediment to progress called the President of the United States right now, you've in the past made statements as to his personal background and the relationship to his, I believe, Indonesian father. There's a film that came out which was reviewed in EIR, but I have not yet read, but I've started to watch the film, called Acts of Killing. According to this film, in 1965, about 1 million people were labeled as communists and were brutally killed in the most horrifying ways possible. What this film brings out is really the nature of particular individuals, a lot of them, who are still alive, who actually carried out this killing. And I believe it's been indicated that Obama's Indonesian father was part of this group of murderers who are still walking around today. I don't even want to talk about any of the details. I would recommend that everyone see this if one wants to bring home the nature of this ilk, of this type of person. And it's pretty scary to think that Obama, if this stuff rubbed off on him, that he's currently in this position. And it's also scary to think that, at least in the mainstream, this connection has been covered up.
It's been covered up, but not successfully covered up as to fact. For purposes of rumor, yes, there's cover-up. But any people who are intelligent and know anything about the general history of the United States organization during this period, his father, Obama's father, was a killer, trained to be a killer by his father. Now, what happened? How did he become a big killer? Well, he became a big killer because the British Empire, the British economic policy, had established Obama as a tool of the British Empire and a mass murderer. Now, look at all the murders that happened. Everything Obama did and has done so far is based on his devotion to mass murder of particularly American citizens. And everybody of importance in the business of the crime business, including me, knows that Obama is a killer. He's an enemy of the United States, but he's an instrument of the British Empire. If you want to get rid of this problem, put the British Empire into closure. Shut them off. End the British Empire and save civilization. That's the simple motto which may solve a great number of problems.
Okay, thank you.
Very good. Next.
Hi, good afternoon, Mr. LaRouche. My question will be more regarding Can you hear me?
I hear. I just want to make sure I don't get the microphone may become an instrument of pain. Go ahead.
The question will be regarding what's going to come in the elections this year after the primaries. We're going to speak about the general election. I want to have your points on what do you think about this triple challenge, because we have the Democrats on one side, we have the GOP on one side, and we have technically Donald Trump in one side. And how important the congressional election will be when we have special interests that finance super PACs for the Republican candidates, turning their back to Donald Trump and also not making any effort to work with the Democrats, and how that will affect the fight for the 99%, because if the congressionals are not, the congressional elections do not get us at a certain point as the presidential elections, we will stay on a vicious circle, unfortunately, because these people will...
Excuse me, you've asked a question. So
I'm still have to finish.
No, wait. No, you said a few things. It's clear what you're asking, so let him answer. If you wish to do a follow-up, we'll take that.
Yeah, but I have to finish the question.
No, actually, your question is clear.
No, but I still had some points to add on the question.
No, you asked about the elections.
Yeah,
he,
but
he may wish to answer, so stop speaking.
But you did not listen to what I have to finish to say.
No, we don't need to do that, because your question was clear.
I had to add something to the question.
No, you do not. No,
interrupting
you
me
do
from
not.
asking the
Now,
question.
and here
That's
is
the point.
why we're doing this. We have an objective in the meeting. And the meeting's intent is to equip many of the people here who are organizers with a conception, a strategic outlook. It is not to have people come to the mic and filibuster about something they say they care about.
Okay.
So what I would request that you do is sit down now. Mr. LaRouche may have an answer. We'll take that answer. We'll go to the next question. And if we wish to entertain anything else from you, then we'll do that.
Well, my question was to Mr. LaRouche,
Get
and I was trying
off
to finish.
the microphone, please. Get off the microphone. Thank you.
No, the problem here is that unless we get rid of Obama from his position, present position, in a short term, we are running out of market for anything to continue the successful continuation of the United States organization. In other words, if we do not shut down Obama within a very short period of time, the month of April, for example, if we do not do that, there will be no future for the United States or for much of the world instead. The important thing is to throw Obama out of office now as an absolute priority. Get Trump out, we got some of the others out, get rid of these guys, because the safety of the United States population depends upon doing exactly that efficiently. Now, if you don't understand what I understand, what I know about the facts of the matter, we are running out of the days of toleration of a continuation of the present economy of the United States. That's it. We've got to settle it now. You cannot sit around and wait for a good, happy time to come. You've got to do the kinds of things which help build support for reform, but also conduct the reform at the same time. And in the case of Manhattan, Manhattan is a very important nation, in fact, in this respect. Because the options for saving the United States from an immediate general collapse are coming on fast. And therefore, if we cannot get some solutions on this thing, the United States population is finished. And it may come in the form of some kind of mass killing in terms of inside the United States and other kinds of things. It's already on plane. Inside the United States, the characteristic of the typical members of the formulation of practice of economy is on the edge of actual closing out. We have a short term of opportunity to save this nation from mass destruction of its population. I've been supporting strongly for certain actions in terms of Manhattan and associated Manhattan areas, because Manhattan is such a big, important element in the totality of the U.S. economy that the health or failure of the United States depends largely on Manhattan. If you understand the economy, that's the picture. And therefore, we have to have a policy to defend Manhattan as a part of defending the United States. And what's going on in Texas right now with the reopening of the space program is another key factor in this thing. Don't gamble on wild guesses. These matters are matters which are important. We can deal with them with a certain degree of solemnity. We can do things. We may be able to succeed. We will try to succeed. We're going to try, with the help of what the space program has done, a renewed space program has been set into motion in Texas, where the space program was originated for the United States. So we're going to have to depend on them. We're going to have to defend in California. Certain parts of California are satanic, but that's because of a sex maniac who ran the place for a while. But this is the kind of problem we have to consider. We have to understand. We have to try to help the nations of South America to get rid of a tyranny which the British Empire is imposing upon them. If we can take these coordinated factors and bring them into effective use, we have an option thereby in which to build something to save the United States itself. Right now, we are in deep trouble. And we're on the edge of doom. We've got to keep from doom away from the door. We've got to find the right programs which will stimulate some protection for the people of the United States to rebuild their optimism, which they've lost, and to get the bums out, like Obama. And guess who else?
Okay, next.
All right. Hi, Lynn. So wanted to give you a report on what we've been doing with the work in Brooklyn to build for the Messiah concert on Easter Sunday at the Visitation Church there. And actually, we've had a very electrified response from the population around the church, but also in response also to this the Messiah program we did in December last year, where you're now getting, as we're handing out leaflets for this new concert, a lot of people have said, "Oh, I went to the last one. I want to be there for this one." And so we're becoming an institution in this area, and it is a lot. It has a lot to do with this Italian principle, and if, in fact, this place where we're going to do the performance, the priest is from Venice, and he's actually very excited that we're going to be doing this there, and he's been so inspired that when there was a funeral for this local Italian tavern owner, he made an announcement at the funeral, which was packed with all these patrons for the concert, that they're going to dedicate actually the Hallelujah to this guy. But the concept is that these guys are getting it's a self-organizing process also on top of what we're doing, to where you now just really have a very clear understanding. And even, in fact, as we're handing out the leaflets, you get people who say, "Oh, this is the Schiller Institute," almost immediately. So that's a real inspiring process, and this is how we're the question of the Manhattan, Brooklyn Manhattan project that we're creating, and so we're also getting a lot of musicians who have given up in the field. They haven't really necessarily given up, but they're not in the profession of what they were trained to be musicians in, and they're all working at like a bakery or being waitresses or something. But as we're telling them that we're having musicians go into the schools and perform for the kids, also having this whole program going on, these people are getting remoralized, and they're volunteering to go into the schools and do work with us. Volunteering their information and so forth, that they want to actually become active with us. And so I just wanted to see what your thoughts are on this, or if you have any thoughts, of probably
on this. Tame it. Tame the beast. Now, in the October of last year, I had completed a plan for going into Manhattan and emphasizing Manhattan as the center of the core of rebuilding the organization of the United States. And I recognize that the Manhattan was the only area which had the magic power of its own peculiar nature and is out of its history to actually do that. And so we have done several things step by step since that time, since we made that decision, in order to say we were going to build a process of increasing the efficiency of the organization in Manhattan. The assumption was that by our work devoting ourselves to several locations on the total territory of the United States, that by working on those areas, which were, shall we say, the most healthy areas in which to pick up from the United States, that would be the solution to prevent the United States itself from collapsing. And that if we had no such program, no such suppression of support for Manhattan, if we just let the old system run rabbit, shall we say, we couldn't have a success. Now we've had successes, and what we've done in terms of the promotion of certain musical programs, we've selected as being the best instruments, the most efficient instruments in trying to revive the U.S. economy in terms of the Manhattan region. That, I think, has tended to work. It has not worked because it's still in the process of trying to find its way to work. But the more we get this thing, you change the moral characteristic of outlook of people within the Manhattan region, and that sets something forth in motion. And I think that's what you want.
Yeah, I think that's what we're getting. Definitely.
Okay, next.
Hi, Lynn. I think I'm beginning to get the drift of where you're going. You dropped a couple of political bombshells, and I like your political bombshells. They resonate with me for a long period of time. The phrase that you used just to the beginning of this discussion, where you talked about a legally organized coup to clean up this political stalemate, this political calamity in the United States, really interests me because it resonates the idea that we have to do something that has never been done before, which I think is incredibly important because the population has such difficulty conceiving as we're organizing of something that has not happened in their lifetime or in their narrow view of history. And so I just want to say a couple of things and then just ask you to expand on that, which is it often resonates in my mind as I'm organizing people that before the last election, you said that if Obama were reelected, you would really see the killing fields coming into being after the election. And this has just been ringing in my head because that is exactly what is happening. The same period in which you were the only strategic analyst on the planet who warned that the overthrow of Gaddafi was going to be the onset of the danger of thermonuclear war. There was nobody else in the world who said that, and that has been completely vindicated. And the killing fields are hitting in the United States. It's now official, 3% rise in death rates across the board of all categories of people since the Obamacare has really gone into action. Not just the heroin addicts, all categories of Americans, 3% rise in the death rate. So, and now you're talking about the role of Manhattan, and that's, just to give people like one snapshot viewpoint of that, I mean, a lot of even New Yorkers don't realize that until the period between Roosevelt's period as governor until 1960, the Henry Hudson River system was the biggest port in the world. It was then superseded by Rotterdam, the friend of London, but now, of course, it's puny compared to China and other places. But the characteristics of that river system are phenomenal, and there would have never been a development of the United States as a whole if it hadn't been for sort of this gift from God of the way that the Hudson River system is organized. So you're hitting right on mark. But what I want to hear more about, frankly, is what you mean by a legally organized coup, because I really like that idea. Would you be willing to expand on that?
Point. Hello? Okay. We get this funny voice keeps coming in. I don't know from where. Probably Satan. It's probably the sound of Satan. But in any case, no, it's necessary for us to understand that we can, by these kinds of means, overthrow an illegal government. The illegal government is Obama. Now, that is buttressed by Obama's associates and by the people who preceded Obama, because Obama was not really a governor. He was nominally a governor, but I think perhaps a certain lady was probably more authoritative than he is, a certain mass murdering lady. So the time has come that we must actually change the laws of the United States in a perfectly legal process. An act of Congress, a simple act of Congress, could save the United States and civilization. Now, if we could find enough people in the government system and so forth to actually bring that about, that's what the whole issue is. You've got to get Obama thrown out of office. If you do not get Obama thrown out of office, it's not that he is that important. It's the point that the British emperor has that aspect. So we have to get rid of the British, we must get rid of Obama. Under those conditions, we can affect, because the people of the United States are completely in dismay right now. Very, very little ability to think of doing anything really significant. All it takes is a significant number of people who understand what they're doing, who are going to make the plea to members of Congress and other things, and get the Congress to reform itself and other institutions of the United States to reform themselves to save the United States. And incidentally, save a lot of other things as well.
Good.
Next.
I think it's good, right? Okay.
You trying to scare me? Okay.
How are you?
I'm fine. You got some
great
material there.
Okay. Just to kind of extend what was just talked about just a little bit. I'm Jessica from Brooklyn, by the way. Okay. I want to talk a little bit about Putin and the future. We've talked to a lot of people, and you know, this presidential campaign thing is still on their minds. What should we do? Who should we vote for? All of that. And so just to kind of start out, I bought a Daily News, which I never do. And not only did I buy a Daily News, but it was $1.25 because it was, I don't know, extra. Seems like it was usually $1. And for some reason, I had to pay $1.25. So, and on the cover of this paper, rag, whatever you want to call it, it has our guy, Trump. Can everybody see that? I think you guys all saw this one. It has racist on the front. Okay, so that caught my eye. I got it. Yeah, that really caught my eye. I said, oh, I have to buy that one. Okay, so it's reminding me that there is an alternate side to all of this. And I started looking into the things that we're writing about. Well, you know, every day I read something extraordinary about what we're doing. And it reminds me that Putin has actually changed the quality of action strategically around all of the things that are going on in Syria and in other parts of the world. And then I found out that Egypt is allocating 1 trillion pounds, which is about $100 billion, to connect Egypt to Africa. And they're also, get this, they're demanding or asking for an Arabic version of our material, which is, I find to be actually amazing. So along with what Hilga is doing and what people in the world are doing and what the BRICS is doing, we have a message to get out there to people that there is a future, that we don't have to settle, as you just said, for any of these so-called candidates. And if you could just kind of go into that a little bit more, because people have a hard time actually saying that, first of all, to people you're talking to, and they go through all this nonsense, and then when you say, yes, but we don't have to have these candidates, they start looking at you like, you know, you have two heads, and then they actually agree, okay, yeah, maybe we don't. All right, so if you could just, you know, go a little further with that, because Putin's my guy, and it's like, this is...
Well, briefly, briefly, I would say that this kind of thing is possible. It would require a systemic kind of process, you know, moving through the body of this nation of the United States. And if we just get enough of them simultaneously to say, why don't we get this guy Trump or whatever he is, and get rid of him, and get rid of a couple of other guys who should have no business being in the presidency whatsoever. That would do it.
Okay.
All you have to do is get enough people riled up to say, because the majority of people are stupid right now. They want to be stupid because they've given up on life. The people who used to be working people, skilled working people, are giving up on life. So therefore, if you can get into areas of the United States, like the space program, there are other things in other parts, districts of the United States, where you can find people who really would agree if they were brought together in the proper way. They would act, they would move. And what we have to do is think about how are we going to activate the people inside the United States who are viable in terms of their outlook, or who can be given renewed confidence. That will do it. But that's what we have to do. That's what we can do in the United States as members of the United States organization. We can do that. We should try to do it. It could work.
Okay, thank you.
Then I'm going to read a question from one of the people here who wrote it down. And he asked something related to a part of what you said to Renee, when you said the question is to save the country, but also to save civilization. And his question is that we actually see not just the destruction of people, but the destruction of civilizations themselves. And this should never be allowed, but he asks, what is the relationship to the idea of civilizations that should be saved and civilization actually developing, to what you talk about when you talk about the character of being human? And what does it mean to be human on this planet?
One of the first things that has to be injected is has to get people free of the idea of economy as people do think they understand it. That's where the problem lies. They are not looking at what the principle of action is, which makes progress possible. They're thinking about how something might give them better money, or better this, better that, or better this. But they don't realize how desperate the situation is in terms of the idea of productivity, in terms of the United States itself. And what we're doing in most parts of the United States, look, Manhattan has a certain concentration of effectiveness. but it's a limited case. Most parts of the United States have no competence whatsoever. They've lost it. They don't have the skills. We have people who used to be productive people. They're committing suicide in various ways. They're destroying themselves. So you have to create a force, an organized force within the population, which gives some confidence, as expression of confidence, to the people who are out there on the edge of suicide. And I'm talking seriously about the problem of suicide. The problem of mass suicide for the formerly employed people inside the United States is one of the greatest disasters the United States has ever experienced. And this has to be done. So therefore, I think the question is, how can we utilize the good cause for emergency action to stimulate enough people to recover from this threat, in order to create an army, or new kind of army, which is going to build confidence to the actual people of the United States. If you do that, you can win. But we're on the edge where the question of whether you can do it or not it's still in question. But for our sake, from the sake of Manhattan and all other similar kinds of things, we must be committed. And for example, the music programs that we are trying to push along are part of this operation. If you can inspire people to find that what they're doing is beautiful and good and resourceful, that is your best weapon. It's always been the best weapon. Classical artistic composition, and only classical artistic composition can do this. But classical conditioning can do the job. But you must deliver that medication. Inspire people. You've got to inspire people in the population. And you've got to think about what kinds of people can be inspired. And you have to decide you're going to have an army, you're going to organize an army to make sure that that kind of force is in existence. That's your best chance, probably your only chance.
Okay, Lynn, that is the conclusion of our leaner and meaner Q&A section. Now, we're involved, as you know, and you've already said it, in a process of pulling a lot of people together in Manhattan. We're talking to people of various levels and walks of life, and we're refusing to just pull in garbage thinking from garbage minds. But I'd like to ask you in summary, because you're really in Manhattan, and this is a process you're doing. We're carrying it out. We realize that. And of course, you can't be here physically. But I wonder, if you were actually here, and you were able to amble out into the street, what would you do?
Duck. I have no plans to do any ducking right now.
Right, I know. Okay, fine. So, do you have anything else for us, or is that your summary for the day?
No, the summary is I think we have a beautiful picture of what we can become in the short term if we put our minds to it.
Okay. All right, so we're going to thank you.
Music is one of the most crucial elements.
All right.
When people are inspired by real music, when they're really inspired by the process of the composition of real music, there's a change in their way of thinking about life. Mm-hmm. And that's the point.
Yeah. Okay, so we'll see you next week.
If they don't shoot me.